What's up, y'all? I'm late again. You got to treat your real estate portfolios like a real business. You got to give it the respect it deserves if you really want to nurture it to grow and to be bigger than you thought it could ever be, right? But hey, if you're just getting here, I'm sorry for being late. Truth be told, I was just trying to write a better outline so I can give you the best possible live, so forgive me, please. And I was crushing a big old poke bowl that must have been like 2 pounds of food, and somehow I managed to squeeze it in, and I haven't fallen asleep yet. First things first, let's fill up. This is the only clean glass I found. Since I was late, I was all rushing. I didn't want to go wash the glass. But I did bring back the hipsters cheers for you guys. I think a couple of you missed it. And the AirPods are in, as always, requested from you guys, the douchey AirPods look. But I'm not in the Bay Area, so I can get away with it, right? I'm not like one of those Apple junkies that you see walking around the streets, AirPods in all day. Guys, we've got to treat our real estate portfolios more seriously. We do. We've got to take it more seriously. You put so much time and effort and work into learning this business. It's such a niche business without so much information out there just floating around on the internet. It's all learned from experience. You invest so heavily in your skill set and your understanding of it. Just to buy a property a year, property every 2 years, and just sit on it. Why? So much latent talent wasted, right? Cheers, y'all. I wonder if any of you guys actually pour one with me or if it's just me sitting here looking like I'm drinking all day. Q&A at 12:30. Why put so much effort into investing in yourself to own a property a year or to borrow a property a year or whatever it is, to grow slow? If you're going to put so much effort into learning, scale that shit, extract every maximum dollar of value you can out of your knowledge base, right? Out of your process assets that you've developed, out of the teams that you built, out of the market knowledge that you have, you might as well. So we're going to talk about treating it like a business today. We're going to take an interesting format to this. 3 categories or 3 kind of buckets, 3 phases to this live today is going to be 1, your top suggestions on how you guys want to treat your real estate portfolios and just kind of investment careers, endeavors, more like a real business. I actually put a question out there 2 days ago saying, how could you treat your portfolio? You're investing more like a business. And you guys gave me a lot of great answers, hundreds of answers. I picked my favorite 4, or I just picked 4 that stood out as I went through because there was hundreds of answers. Then I'll tell you what our keys to growth have been over the past 4 or 5 years. I picked my favorite 4 also, right? So we'll give you 4 from each category. My top 4 are things that have gotten us to this point, but not necessarily the things that'll get us to that next level. So category number 3 or bucket number 3 is gonna be the stuff that's gonna get us to next level exponential growth and keep this business from just stabilizing at the rate of growth that it's kind of seen lately, because it's doubled, and we want it to continue to double and not just grow 10 or 15% a year, right? That's too slow for us. Why the fuck you want to grow 10 or 15% a year? We want to double every year, right? That's how you make it big. So I'll give you our 4 keys that at least we've conceived now to future exponential growth and keeping this thing growing at a crazy pace every year. Before we get into that, crazy day, a lot of closings. That was great, right? 5 closings today, 2 earlier this week. Big money week on the flip side and on the acquisition side. A lot of equity acquired, a lot of revenue generated. So happy times. Cheers to that. I need a nap after this, so I'm going to reward myself with a nap and a good workout after this. I haven't gone to the gym all week. Don't ask why. And crazy for another reason. We had a property manager walk through an 8-plex in Kentucky that we're just getting ready to wrap up, a final walkthrough. We've already inspected this, right? The building was basically totally vacant. Totally vacant. We thought we were gonna have 6 of 8 units occupied at the time of close. Completely vacant. Eviction notice on 1 door, 3 vacated, units trashed, units that were like recently renovated to fill, supposedly, not renovated to fill, water like flooding into the basement. I think there was like a pipe that burst that was just left unattended. Craziness. And our buyer's new property manager is who discovered this, and it took like a month or a month and a half to get the seller's property management company to let us in. Shitty management company. And that's what happens when people use horrible management and then neglect their properties and don't keep their eye on them. Seller was there, he got to see it, so that's crazy. Unfortunately, we're probably gonna have to kill the deal or just look for a major concession from the seller and pass a lot of money back to our buyer to make it worth his while, if he even wants to undertake that kind of experience. And if he doesn't, quite honestly, I have no problem leaving money and a deal on the table just to not have to go through that, or so that he does not have to go through that. Sorry, my brain is not functioning all the way, a little bit of low sleep this week. Deals go south all the time. It's crazy. And that, if anything, contributes to more reasons for you to treat your investment portfolio like a business, because you need more coming in the door. Shit goes wrong all the time, right? You can't just settle for like subpar options or limited options. You need a lot of resources at your disposal to be able to make the most out of this thing. So without any further backstory, let's get into this. Let's talk about what your top suggestions were for treating your investments in a more business-like fashion to grow and make more money. And that's the whole point of this, guys, is to be able to grow that portfolio from, like, you know, that dream of maybe one day I'll own 10 to in 5 years I'll own 200, right? I'll own 500. In a decade I'll own 1,000. I'm going to own $1 billion worth of real estate. Those crazy goals, they come from these kind of processes and philosophies that are implemented. So, and they kind of, like, your suggestions and then our keys to growth and then our keys to future growth, they kind of go in order from like stuff for, I would say, like beginners, and then at like the mid-level to be able to grow a business out of it, and then like that higher level to take this thing to really, really high revenue or like legacy wealth generating status. So your top suggestions, number one of you guys said more focus and more intent and less browsing around. And I've got my opinions on why people do this. I think the browsing around on Zillow and different markets and putting offers in randomly and falling out of inspections all over the place, it comes from a lack of definition and a lack of process. I think it starts with not having a clear product that you're pursuing. People are just offering on all kinds of stuff. They don't even know what their criteria is. So I would say define your criteria. What makes for a good property? Define the kind of market that you want to invest in. Establish criteria for that market. What makes for a good market, a viable market for you to invest in? Have teams put in place, have processes put in place. And I think when you have these structures in your acquisitions plan or your plan to start investing, then it becomes easy to just put yourself on a track and just follow it. That's it. Without these structures in place, you can find yourself wandering. When you're wandering, you browse. You just look at Zillow all day and you look at this, you look at that, you call this one realtor and you make this one offer to this for sale by owner, and maybe you do an inspection if you get to that phase and you back out because you're not really sure like how much you want to pay for this in the first place. You just made an offer and you've got issues in the property that you have a hard time attaching a dollar amount to. You need clear criteria and you need to have a clear system, and you need to have your manager, your lender, your inspector, your market of preference or a list of them all dialed in, and then just push the button. Build the machine and have only one button sticking out of it, and just push that fucking button. Just do what your machine that you've built tells you to do. And you'll find yourself being a little more focused, if not way more focused. Forget the little comment that I just made. You'll be a whole lot more focused because you'll have clarity on what you're supposed to be doing, what you expect of yourself and of your rental property, right? That's the best way to stop browsing and focus more, is have a plan. If I could have said that all in one word, have a plan. The next one was DIY work. Stop doing DIY work. And I don't even mean like delegate. Like this is a level before that. This is painting your own walls. This is putting up your own Craigslist ad for rentals. This is screening your own tenants. This is work that is easy to hand off. There are professionals in place for this. Why are you doing it? Get that shit off your plate. It's okay if you pay someone 8 to 10% of your rents. Chalk it up to wages for yourself that you've decided to hand off to a different person, because that's just not a job you want to do for that wage. That's it. You have other things to do, and you need to sit there and make it clear to yourself what those other things of higher value are, so that you can rationalize pulling yourself away. Because look, I've got a little bit of micromanage in me as well. I think all like perfectionists do, right? I've got that perfectionist in me. I've got that little bit of control freak in me. But I see frequently higher value activities as a beacon of light that guide me away from doing inexpensive things myself. I think you need to find that too. Find your value, attach it to activities that you should be doing, and then just relentlessly pursue creating the time for you to do those higher value activities, and you won't find yourself painting the walls anymore. And guys, if you have a hard time finding a cheap handyman or contractor to paint your rental property, you're never, and you go and do it yourself, you're never gonna force yourself to put in that time and effort and go through the crappy contractors and learn those lessons to finally find the good one that's worth so much to you in the future, in the long term, and over the course of many more properties than just this one, right? See things as a little bit broader. There's much more at stake here than this one deal ahead of you that you're saving time and effort and money on, or sorry, saving money on, or being able to do better because you're doing it yourself. You are passing up on having a person in place for a much bigger set of activities. That's it. It takes years sometimes to find that right property manager. By the way, we were in Northwest Indiana for 2 years before we started working with the manager we are working with now, who's excellent, by the way. And we have backups too, but it took years and reps and failed attempts to develop those relationships. That's just the nature of it. Don't be afraid to fuck up. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money. And if the numbers don't work out without you having to paint the property yourself or to manage the property yourself, you didn't buy a good enough deal. I'm sorry, you're buying the wrong kind of deal. And that goes back to establishing criteria. Don't make the deal fit by doing it the wrong way. Right? Don't say, hey, I'm just going to be able to do a property in this market because I could do it all myself. Go find that right market where you can rationalize more easily paying someone to manage, paying someone to paint, paying someone to refloor, hiring the contractor. It's all good, guys. Hand it off. Hand off the basic stuff first. Number 3, finding your own deals. I'm going to be careful not to push you guys towards like what we do, because I have a bias towards it and I take it for granted because we've for years built a system and we live in this, right? I do this full time. Finding your own deals doesn't necessarily mean creating your own acquisitions funnel that relies solely on marketing directly to seller, sales intake, sales process, negotiation, and offers. Because if we only bought like a few deals a year or a few deals a month, having this whole acquisitions engine would make 0 sense. It makes sense because we have a lot of other volume coming through it that generates revenue for our business, right? Wholesale, and then acquisitions of our own. So we have like multiple byproducts that this system creates that makes it worthwhile for us to send out 20,000 mailers a month. And guess what? The system pays for itself many times over, right? So for you, if you're gonna market directly to seller, I would say go smaller up front. Pick a small list, pick a list of highly targeted properties, and then just get after them frequently. You don't need to send letters to even 1,000 people if you just want to buy a few properties for yourself and get this acquisitions thing rolling. You need to maybe find the top 2, 3, 4, 500 people, and don't be afraid to invest in it monthly to get these people coming in the door and give yourself the opportunity to talk to them over time. But you may not be doing that at all either. You may be looking for an easier way to acquire properties regularly and have acquisitions inflow so you can analyze enough deals and not get it attached to any one too, right? You become more emotionally attached to a deal and trying to make it work out when you only have 1 or 2 in front of you. When you have a bunch in front of you, you have options, and then you can make more clear decisions, right? By comparing them to each other and comparing them to your criteria and not feeling like you're gonna miss out because there's not going to be another deal to come up. You'll have a sense of abundance, right? But if it's not marketing directly to seller, get your realtor relationship system dialed in. Get your wholesaler network dialed in. Whatever those deal sources could be in that market, whatever best fits your activity level and your experience level, get those in place. Invest in them a little bit and get your deals coming in. Just get them coming in frequently. If it's the MLS, fine, but just have a plan for how you're going to scrub through that on a regular basis, or have someone like scrub through it for you, virtual assistant or something like that. Pull listings and have like hire someone off Upwork to create like a piece of Python script and just scrape Zillow and just put in like purchase prices and unit count and square footage all into like a little database, or just have a realtor send you the MLS log and then get it into Excel and filter it out, something like that. But just have constant lead influx and have a plan for how you want to get that lead influx to come on in. That'll give you an opportunity to get some real deals and not just sit there and wait or have to go drive for dollars. I fucking hate driving for dollars. Stop driving for dollars, guys. Stop driving for dollars. It's not worth your time, I promise. You should be able to find deals. There's more than one good deal out there in this country, so the concept of I have to do it myself to get there, just see this one magical deal, is probably not a scalable one. Number 4, I like this suggestion because it implies much more than what it says on the surface. I need a CRM. You guys said, I need a CRM. If you think of what not having a CRM or a database, even a fucking Excel sheet that's like well organized if you're not doing this in scale, what not having that does to your business or your plan to acquire real estate, right, and grow a portfolio, it hamstrings it so badly because you're going to spend so much time reanalyzing every deal every time you look at it. Every single time. If you're doing it in like notes on your phone, you're going to be scrolling back up and through, and you won't have a way to keep track, look back and say, show me all the deals that, I don't know, were this price range, that I haven't talked to for this amount of time, that were this amount of rents. You need some sort of database, guys. Don't just write it down on a piece of paper. You will want to go back and follow up on those things that didn't happen today, and you'll need the opportunity to continue to follow up too over time. We get most of our deals through extended follow-up. We're talking like minimum 3 months after first contact to get a deal usually, and then sometimes 2 to 3 years after first contact with someone after they've called in from a mailer. So having a CRM in place, good idea. I think it's a good idea. Building something. Podio, guys. It doesn't have to be Salesforce. I wouldn't recommend getting Salesforce like we have for like a starting acquisitions operation. Podio is free. You can build it out yourself. Start with a Google Sheet. Do something, right? Teach yourself a process though. Those are your top suggestions. I like them. I think they're all newbie suggestions, which are very useful newbie suggestions to get you thinking a little bit more like a business person and not just a landlord, right? Our keys to growth. So over the past 4 years, our business has grown substantially. From year 1 to year 2, it tripled. From year 2 to year 3, it doubled. From year 3 to year 4, it doubled. And then from year 4 last year to year 5 this year, it'll double again. So it's really, really gotten moving. It's beautiful what's happened to it. I'm grateful. I even feel like lucky sometimes, to be quite honest with you, right? I mean, we've done a lot, not to say we haven't done a massive amount of hard work and done a lot of things correctly, but man, it's been a beautiful result. But it would not have been this result without these 4 things. Number 1, picking a niche and digging deep. And you'll see that the 4 things I mentioned, they're kind of just like more advanced versions of the 4 things that you guys suggested that we listed up here. They feel like evolutions of each other, right? So picking a niche and digging deep is kind of like me saying identify your criteria and build a process and choose a market, right? And build a team. Picking that niche and digging deep has been extremely important for us because it allowed us to say, let's focus in on exactly what makes us the most money with the highest rate of success with the lowest level of effort per dollar earned. And let's drill really, really deep into that. For us, that niche was affordable housing in secondary Midwestern markets that had strong rental fundamentals, but prices had not yet caught up to the rental fundamentals compared to like nearby markets. For example, Racine, Wisconsin, rents growing really rapidly, growing more rapidly than Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but properties selling at a much higher cap rate and a much lower price. Getting into markets like that, selecting that as our niche, and then markets that were kind of difficult to invest in, economically and maybe demographically challenged, but being able to succeed in them because they're better than they look on the surface because the rental demand makes them manageable even from a distance with good enough property management options, and saying, hey, let's just stay close to these bigger cities so that there is enough infrastructure to be able to have multiple property managers and backups and contractors and all that in place and jobs for people. That little niche has allowed us to make a lot of money. And the problem with people when they try to scale is I want to go where there's a lot of different opportunities. Let me go pick the big city because there's a lot going on there, right? A lot of people know about it. There's a lot of properties there. There's a lot of bigger buildings. The problem is there's also a lot of competition, right? So if you can find enough space where you can like take a much larger market share than you would in the big city, the amount of market share we've gotten in East Chicago, Indiana, compared to what we could have gotten in like Chicago, in a market that performed comparably, right? Or a product that performed comparably, tremendous difference. Like it's got to be 50x, right? So pick a niche, define what that niche is, and drill really, really, really deep into that niche and stay true to it, because distractions, what they do is not only do they not work out and not make you money, they take your attention away from the thing that is going to make you a lot of easy money. That's what we found out. When we got into this, we found a couple things that worked really well, and then we started adding a bunch of other shit, going, let's just add a bunch of stuff, a bunch of different things and succeed at all this stuff. And as soon as we did that, we diluted ourselves out. Not only did we spend more money on marketing, we spent more resources on being able to follow up with these leads. It was harder to analyze them because they weren't obvious deals as often. So you spent a lot of time on marginal stuff that you weren't sure is a deal or not, and you end up kind of burning yourself out, spinning your tires, and as salespeople call it, clogging the pipeline. You clog up the pipeline so the real deals can't move through because the pipeline is clogged with junk, right? So moving those distractions out of the way allows you to get further along, make more progress with the stuff that really makes you money. Grab a niche and stick with it, guys. The second thing that we did, this relates to the Burr post from this week, right? It's not that I'm anti-Burr. I'm trying to get you guys to think of what would make you the most possible money. Not does Burr make you money or not. Do you have something you could do with that property right afterwards or further down the road that would make you even more money than if you just kept that property, and significantly more without taxing your operational model? Number 2 is revenue first mentality. We bought a Burr deal in August of 2016, and we were successful at buying, renting, rehabbing, went through the refi, got the appraisal, and said, you know what? Fuck this. Let's just sell it. Because we were going to make a couple $100 a month after reserves. Couple $100 a month, and even before reserves we would have made, I don't know, $500 a month. Great. But we were acquiring property pretty rapidly. We were buying off-market deals for half of their market value in their as-is condition a couple times a month at some point. And that's what made us realize, why keep this? We can get our money back, and then we can get the extra $25K in equity that we generated also back and use that to buy 2 more of these cheap properties and then resell them and double our money again within a 1-month period of time. Not even a 3-month cycle time, because we weren't even rehabbing and refinancing and selling these things. We were buying them and reselling them, wholesale, right? It's just straight up. So why would we keep that $25K in equity in deal number 1? If that $25K bought us 2, you won't believe this, $12,000, $13,000, $15,000 houses, basically, that we would immediately sell and make 12, 13, 15 on each at the same time. And as soon as we did that, we broke free. We broke free. Don't be afraid to trade something that's going well for you now for something that can go much better. Don't be afraid to trade 1 good property for 2 good properties. Why wouldn't you, right? I mean, why wouldn't you trade a great deal that you paid 50 for that's worth 100 for 2 more deals that are worth 50 that'll also be worth 100? Why wouldn't you do that? Imagine that deal came to you, right? That better deal, that 100K deal that's worth 200, and you didn't have the money to buy it. What would you do? Pass on it? Or would you sell that thing that you've got that's worth 100 to get into it? I know what I'd do. I'd fucking double my money 1 more time, and 1 more time, and 1 more time. Revenue first mentality. And guys, when you're new real estate investors and you want to make this a thing, guess what? You could use a little bit of income on the books, right? Like, who gives a shit if you're making $1, $2, $3, $5, $10,000 of passive income a year on 1 deal? The banks sure don't. When you go to get a loan on that $1 million deal after, that bigger deal. So just don't be afraid to ditch things that you previously believed to be so true or that you are comfortable with for things that you can confidently execute that would make you much more cash. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'll tell you just straight up numbers and timelines. After March of 2017, we never owned a rental property again. Never owned a rental property again until July of last year, because we were turning $1 into 2 so rapidly, so many times over, as aggressively, with no regard for human life, as fast as possible. And from July of last year to now, we have acquired 64 units. 12 of them have debt on them. 52 of them are free and clear. 100% free and clear. And all of them, by the way, so the whole portfolio is worth about $4 million. It was acquired for about $2.2 million. 400 of it is debt. 450 of it is debt. That's 1.8 instant equity generated in a year because we built a business that would get us the deals actually at discounted prices. I'm not saying it would be that easy for you guys to find that. That's me taking my business for granted again. But holding off on tying money up in rentals for a couple years allowed us to generate so much income and create a revenue generating engine that allowed us to buy many rentals very rapidly without having to refi at deep discounts. And by the way, during COVID, where there was a lot of economic distress out there and not a lot of banks were lending, and guess what? We were cash buyers. And now we're just going to 1031 these into next deals too. I just did it. Had a duplex that we're all into for 37 or 38. You guys saw the live on it like 3 or 4 weeks ago, right? All into this duplex for like 38,000 bucks, worth 125. Yeah, it was cash flowing. Yeah, I can go get a loan for 90 on it, no problem, 92, whatever it might be. But why would I leave the rest of the money tied up? I could just 1031 that sucker, pay no taxes. I didn't pay any realtor fees. I just sold directly to one of my buyers and rolled it into, kept that same equity, just transferred it into another property, right? It's not like you're losing the equity. So I don't get why people get so upset about the concept of selling. Transferred it into a $350,000 fiveplex that I owe $260 on now. So there's a little bit of 1031 money left over for a next deal that I owe $260 on. That's worth $500 or $550 all day right now based on the comps. All day. I could sell it to my buyers for $500 right now, this fast, without raising rents or anything like that. Why not sell that property tax-free and just keep the equity and then add an extra $200 to it? Would you keep the deal and turn down $200,000 of bonus equity? I sure as hell wouldn't. And by the way, the second property that has that traded equity, that basis transferred into it, cash flows a lot more. It rents for a lot more. And even with the mortgage, it's a $5,000 monthly rent on that property versus a $1,550 monthly rent on the previous property. Previous property is free and clear, right? New property has a $1,300 monthly loan on it, right? Property taxes and insurance knock off and maintenance and vacancy and all those other things knock off about $2,000 off the $1,300 in a loan, that knocks off a total of $3,300, $1,700 in cash flow from the same equity without putting in my own additional dollars in, versus, what was that cash flow on that? Like 50%, 60% of that $1,550, right? Versus like $600, $700, $800. So I like tripled my equity position and doubled my cash flow. Don't be afraid to prioritize making money, generating income. When you're new, you need cash anyways. If you're not super filthy and if you have more deals than you have cash, then you should be holding on to properties, right? Or sorry, you should be selling properties to move into the next deal. If you're short on cash, you need more cash. If there's a ton of deals out there and you can't buy them because you don't have cash, you need to create the cash, right? If you have a bunch of cash and not enough deals, then keep it sunk in properties. That's the philosophy right there. The next thing, this is a little bit less real estate related, right? The next thing we did that made us successful was we spent money on advertising. We were not afraid to spend on advertising and then spend more and more and more on advertising on both ends of the business. It got us more deals on the acquisition side. It got us better deals, and blind faith, continuing to spend money on advertising over time, got us the consistency effect. People that called us because they've gotten our letters for 3 or 4 years. Those are the best deals, and those are the deals where you don't have to compete with anyone because they know and trust you through a letter you've sent enough times. That's it. So we spent money on advertising on the acquisitions end, and our business really blew up when we spent money on advertising on the dispositions end, on the investor relations end, because we brought on exactly the right type of client who appreciates our property the most. We created a massive volume of clients that came in. Some of them valued our service, some of them didn't. Some of them really liked our properties and matched up in criteria, some of them didn't. And because we brought in more of them, we got to pick the ones who got the most value out of our service and aligned most closely with our product, which allowed us to sell our product for what it's truly worth instead of less. And our service for what it's truly worth instead of less, which guess what? Allows us to make higher offers on the acquisition side. And because we're able to make higher offers on the acquisition side, we get more deals because we outcompete everybody. And we make more money. That's it. So investing in advertising on both the acquisitions and the investor relations side came at a massive value to us right now. Let me share numbers. So we send out mailers every 3 weeks to 20,000 sellers. And we use kind of a premium mail piece. We still have a volume deal, costs 54 cents per letter. So we're looking at about $11,000 every 3 weeks, multiplied by about 4/3, start to get the average monthly. And you're looking at somewhere around $14,500 a month on letters. That's what we spend on letters. It's all good. It's a lot of money, but it's all good. That's what you need to do when you get to this point. At an earlier point, we spent much less. We started with like $1,000 a month, right? But it really developed into this much bigger marketing funnel where we really need more deals. And we go after deals with good spreads only, right? So it's worthwhile. So about $14,500 a month on letters. On the disposition side, we don't need investors anymore through advertising. It comes in organically through social media because it's so big. And I'll talk about that in a second. But we still spend about $300 a day on online ads. Most of it is through Instagram. There's some through like YouTube as well. $300 a day is what, $9,000 a month. So we spend about $24,000 a month, $23,500 a month on advertising alone, and that's just through those sources. There's probably little like extra things here and there, rounded out at 25 or something like that. 25 grand a month on advertising has made us millions and millions of dollars. I'm gonna shoot you straight. That's without it, never would have happened. Never would have happened. So when you get to the point where you might have a business model on your hands, don't be afraid to spend some money on advertising. It's gonna get you there. The last detail is extreme process orientation. Right? The last thing or the most important thing probably that's gotten this business off the ground and to be able to generate income reliably and easily and at a high margin and without us having to kill ourselves and our employees being able to work like normal 8-hour days is extreme process orientation. What I mean by that is not only do we have processes to make things extremely efficient or as efficient as possible, not to say they can't all improve, they can all continuously improve, right? They're not the best, but they're really good for a business of our size and compared to our competitors out there as well. But extreme process orientation internally, not on the customer facing side necessarily, also allows us to take on tasks that make us a lot of money per unit of effort and per unit of resources and per HR unit, right? In the building here, me, Mike, and 4 other people are able to do a lot because of the process we built. And also they allow us to be extremely discriminate against activities that inherently can't have easy processes attached to them. We're so hard on that. We're not afraid to eliminate shit that's hard to execute successfully and takes a lot of effort. In fact, if something has a good amount of money potentially attached to it, but takes a ton of effort and it can't be streamlined, we just don't do it. We're just not afraid to say, no, we're just not going to include that in our business, or we're just going to chop that off. That's fat to be trimmed, right? So that level of process orientation starts with elimination, starts with you saying, what can I do successfully, easily, that makes me a lot of money, and then build a very useful process around. And if I can't, it's not even a part of my business. That's what I mean by process orientation. Those were my 4 favorites. There's a lot more. I mean, honorable mention, building a brand, extremely important on the seller side and on the buyer side. And that kind of attaches to the advertising statement, but building a brand has been monstrous for us. We have a lot more work to do. We're not billionaires, right? I mean, not to say we necessarily want to be or want to build a business that reflects that, but we can get much better. And this business needs to continue. We're really feeling the pressure right now to be able to continue growth at this pace. It's not easy, guys. I'm not going to lie. The money is great now. I'm not spending it, right? It's not a lifestyle goal. It's almost sport. Right? How big can we create? How big of a business can we create, and how much can we expand our mission out and be able to pass it along over to our investors or the clients or the people that need us, right? Building this bigger is going to take 4 key things. And these are like things we should have done sooner. So if you guys could apply these earlier on, I think you can grow your portfolios and your investing businesses surrounding it faster. The number one thing that we should be doing now that we're not, because we have such a massive investor base, is taking investor money. We have so many investors. We've even turned off advertising. We've made the button in the link in bio say minimum 100K to invest, opt in here, just to kind of like make less people opt in, right? And we still get about 25 people opting in a day to our investor list. It used to be 60 to 70 a day. Now it's 25. That's a lot. We sell about 100 properties a year, right? We can't service 2 people a day. We can't service 1 person a day. We can really take care of about 1 a week because a lot of our buyers are repeat buyers, right? And they come back over and over and over and over. So we need to take investor money. We need to be able to take all these funds that investors are just kind of holding out and say, hey, invest this or allow me to invest this, and we got to figure out something to do with it. And that might mean a different product. That might just mean more of the same product. That might just mean going for stuff that's lower cap rate, but maybe has better like growth fundamentals, or it at least has some semblance of stability to it that justifies the lower cap rate. We need to take investor money, pool it, and then just buy a lot of stuff with it. And we're trying to figure out exactly what that product is. We think it's more of what we're doing now, but there's a finite supply, and there seems to be right now an infinite supply of investors. It'll cool off, but even when it cools off, there will be many more investors than there are viable properties that meet our criteria. So we have to figure out kind of what to do with the criteria to be able to add more to that inventory pool and then be able to take investor money. That's outside of our comfort zone, because managing the investor as a partner on a deal and then the legal regulations surrounding it, they add more complication to our business. We've avoided it because it hasn't been as easy. Right? What we've been doing has been easy and probably easier money, to be quite frank with you. But we need to own more and generate less cash on the books anyways. So taking investor money is key. If you can learn to do it early, you can probably be pretty successful pretty fast. It just requires a lot of competence. You have to be a good operator or have a good operator on board. And you really have to be able to find good deals. That seems to be the important part right now. The second thing we need to do more of and better is monetize our knowledge. Monetize our experience. This is something that nobody does or everyone takes for granted. We learn something and get better at it and refine our craft. And then we feel as if it's normal to understand it like we do. The things that I say and think about real estate, I imagine sometimes, even though I know it's not the truth, that everyone thinks these things and understands these things. And it's not the case. My throat's getting dry, so I need to lubricate it with some whiskey. People want what you know. You've gone through so much effort to learn it. If you've learned something that you've mastered, right? Thousands and thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours for me. Why not monetize it and offer it to people that want it at the value that they would attach to it appropriately, right? Selling the resources we have, just the deal calculator, the due diligence guide, and the contracts this year has been a growing and much bigger revenue source than we thought. Much bigger revenue source than we thought. People want it. That information is not readily available, and it's useful to people at a pretty fair price, right? The amount of time, dollar time that I put into learning and building those tools is much greater than the cost that you pay for it. I just benefit from them because I have an audience with some volume attached to it that can collectively pay me more than what I had invested into building them, right? But on the individual level, you got to realize that if you spend 100 hours learning something about real estate and you can pack it into a 10-hour course and sell it for $200 or something like that, that's worth it to people. That's worth it to people, because talking to a consultant for an hour costs $200. 10 hours of consulting time is $2,400. If you can give it to them for $200, good value. Share your knowledge. Leverage the value of it. It could bring you investors, it could bring you buyers like it has for my business, and it could bring you purchasers of information. And I love the model of selling information. Don't underestimate it, guys. If you have a brand attached to your business and some sort of like a following attached to your real estate business, whether it's the investors coming in or people that you just like, maybe, hey, build a social media page. I'm a big fan of it, right? Sell what you know. It can make you a lot of money. The digital products business will be a 7-figure business for us next year. 100%. The education business will easily be, and without being like one of those rip-off, sell you garbage, fucking pie in the sky stuff, right? I'm talking about like legitimate information being shared at a accessible cost, a very accessible cost. It will be a 7-figure business. Anyone could do it. You just got to learn something and then just market it. Number 3 is new business models. We need to really try to take things that our current business has created. Once you've invested in your asset, this business, this knowledge base is an asset. It could spin off into other things, right? You could take pieces of it and attach them to something else, whether it's an online marketplace for us that utilizes our acquisitions and due diligence model and presentation for the sales process, whether it's like syndication, like we talked about earlier, whether it's new product types. We're really exploring trying to get into larger multifamily or self-storage or industrial or mobile home park. And we want to understand how to take what we've currently used and apply it to these businesses, because we can operate at greater volume with these. Now there could be more competition there, so maybe that's going to be a problem for us, right? But being able to operate in $2 to $3 to $4 million chunks instead of $2 to $3 to $400,000 chunks could allow you to make a lot more revenue in this business and scale your portfolio much faster, right? So we need to operate in new business models and with new asset types. And the last thing that we need to do better, this is something you do once your business kind of develops a little bit more, your portfolio develops more. Pay for expensive help. Pay for expensive help. We just put an attorney on retainer for advertising compliance consultation, right? And they have a lot to say about it. Some great advice came from them. We're paying $665 an hour for their time. It's expensive, but you don't need 100 hours of their time. You need 5 or 10, and then you take these things and pack them into a business and create much more value out of it, right? An attorney for asset protection, $250 an hour. And that's, the retainer was $10,000. The retainer was $10,000. So an attorney for asset protection, $250 an hour, right? Help us just structure our wealth though, our family of businesses into different corporations, and then our personal assets into other entities to protect our wealth. And to protect each business from each other, right? You start to really accumulate liability as your portfolio grows. An attorney for advertising, interesting, huh? Trust me, you'll need it if you end up advertising a lot and making a lot of money because of it. I can't say much, I'm sorry. Asset protection, another $250 an hour. A good CPA is $225 an hour, right? And you really got to lean on them. Hiring out a bookkeeper to handle our shit so it's not a mess at the end of each year. Not figuring all these things out yourself to the most granular degree. You don't want to understand every little detail. Just understand the stuff that allows you to make decisions as a business owner. But don't be afraid to hire expensive help when you get to the point that it has a high ROI, just because it seems expensive, right? The concept of a 6-figure employee could seem scary to a lot of you guys. You might need it at some point. You might need it. I could certainly use someone that helps me, maybe as a consultant, that helps me develop our online brands at a very high price. Unfortunately, that's what they cost. The good ones, because you know what? You pay someone $100 an hour for that stuff, or you pay someone a couple $1,000 for a whole project, and you might be disappointed with it. So hiring expensive help is the last thing we need to do. This was a very stream of consciousness live, guys. I kind of wrote down the bullet points that I liked, but I didn't rehearse them or even expand them out. So thank you for kind of allowing me to treat this like a conversation with the camera instead of a speech, right? Because I don't really like giving speeches anyways. And who's got time for that shit? I got to talk to you for an hour every week, so it's going to be off the top of my head sometimes. Take these tips, hold on to them. The early ones spoken of in the beginning of this conversation, use them now. The stuff that we used to grow in the last 5 years, plan to use them very soon. And the last category that I just talked about, think of them as a goal to reach, right? Something that you chase. Chase the time where you do have the need to hire a $500 an hour attorney or a $100,000 employee, or to chase a syndication, right? Get yourself to that point. Those are your targets, right? Those are kind of your benchmarks. We're hopefully getting to that point pretty soon. And you know what? It's hard. It is hard to break yourself out of the things that you do and the ways that you think, no matter how much you know it's necessary to do these things. So I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. Find whatever motivator you need psychologically to pull yourself up out of your current habits and into the next level. That's it. I'll give you guys some Q&A in a second. And just throw me some questions. I'm gonna drink some whiskey for a minute here too. That poke bowl that we had first, holy shit, dude. There was a whole glob of wasabi, fresh wasabi in the corner. I wasn't paying attention. I just dug my chopsticks right into it. I was getting after it. You see those cartoons where they're just eating with chopsticks like this. I dug my chopsticks right into the corner and just took a dome full of just wasabi. I was lit up. It was horrible. So I might still be sweaty from that. Maybe that's why I was talking so fast today too and so distracted. Thank you guys for joining me, by the way, live. I really appreciate all y'all. Maybe I should do a giveaway after this with something from the live that only you would know the answers to. You can get some free stuff from me. Hit me with questions. What do we got? Any advice for advertising on social media? Yes, I do have a couple pointers for you. One is it doesn't generate as much results as organic content does, but it generates your results now while you're still building up that like ability to get viral, right? And like produce content that's far reaching. So I would say if you're new to investing in real estate and using social media to drive it, I'd be highly specific in your purpose of advertising on social media. If you're looking for investors, and we only use advertising at first on social to get investors to opt into our investor list. That's what we needed. So be really specific in your cause and drive conversions. Now we just advertise for brand awareness. That's it. We're not trying to drive conversions. We're just trying to drive brand awareness. The brand itself will convert on its own at its own pace, right? Is the ROI really, really high on our online advertising? Not really. That $300 a day, I don't know. I mean, it's like 20 cents a click to our page, right? And of course, there's like familiarity with impressions too, but 20 cents a click to our page, which is supposedly not terrible for like the financial services industry. I mean, you produce a reel that goes viral and it gets like, a basic reel gets 100,000 views, right? So is it really worth it? I don't know. I think Instagram likes me because of it. I think the algorithm favors you when you advertise for organic growth also. And when my account got temporarily banned, I have a account manager on the ads side that I was able to reach out to directly because we spend a good amount of money with them, that was able to say, you know what, let me get that fixed for you. Fringe benefit. What's my scotch? It's not scotch today. It is an Irish whiskey that a client got me. It's called Writer's Tears. I made an edit to it myself. It's pretty good stuff, actually. So usually like the blended stuff I'm skeptical of, but this stuff, I'm guessing it was blended, but it's aged in 2 casks, right? American and a French oak cask. Tastes kind of bourbony. I'm guessing that's the American oak cask, which gives it a nice little sweetness that Irish whiskey doesn't usually have. Do me and Thatch have beef? I've never talked to the guy. I've got zero issue with him, to be honest. What's funny is that like people on social media, they create like almost like little like wars between each other or like cliques. And quite frankly, I'm running a business and this is just like my platform to do it. I don't really care about like anybody else on here, like at all, except for you guys. Right? I really don't give a shit. I think someone made a couple reels duetting like my Burr stuff, saying like why my Burr ROE optimize your returns philosophy is wrong, and I didn't watch it, to be honest with you. I didn't watch any of it. I had a couple people send it to me. Lady seemed nice enough, but yeah, I didn't even open it. I'm running a business on here, guys. Not trying to make buddies and collab with other social media people. Sounds kind of silly to me. When did I grow enough to need to hire my first employee? What was that threshold or catalyst? April, I'm gonna be very transparent with you. April of 2017, we had our first $100,000 month. It was just Mike and I. Now, it wasn't always $100,000 months before and after that, right? Or around that. But it started to become consistent. $50,000, $60,000 a month was not uncommon. And then averaging 100 pretty quickly after, right? So first employees came shortly after that month where we said, you know what? We just need to increase the volume of leads coming in the funnel because the margins are so high. Making 100 and paying ourselves 6 each or 5 each. I think it was 5 each back then. You know, we upgraded to 6, and just this month we upgraded to 7, right? We stayed at $6,000 a month each payment until just now, which is crazy because that's a very small fraction of what we earn. But August of 2017, end of August, like the 30th, first 2 employees came on board. Transaction manager, so basically someone to handle the whole escrow back end side, including like, you know, investor conversations, and then an acquisitions rep that can do all the qualification and tee up and information gathering and identifying good deals and getting them over to Mike so he can close. That was our first set of hires. And we've been able to grow revenue very consistently without having to constantly add headcount. That's been kind of the beautiful thing about this business is we've allowed ourselves to concentrate valuable or value-added activities into a relatively small team. But that was the catalyst, was making a good amount of money and realizing that there's a lot more left on the table if we don't hire. It wasn't even like needing the help necessarily. It was, we need to create a reason to need this help ASAP. And then we did for the next few months, and then we hired people on. How much do I pay my employees? I can't disclose that, right? It's private information. I pay them all at least, you know, the California-based salary, and all of them receive, because they're exempt employees, right? So they all get a salary, and they all get a commission or quarterly bonus, depending on the role. we had to take this model, and we're glad we did because of COVID. COVID allowed us to realize that cheap help wasn't doing much for us, and they didn't want to come back to work anyways. So we said, let's hire people. Instead of hiring more people at low cost, let's hire more skilled people that are better for the business and can buy into the vision and that really want to work at a higher price, a price that makes it so that they're not going to want to stay home on unemployment because they make significantly less money, not the same amount or a little bit less or whatever it was. So I would like to believe we take care of our people here, and it's worth it, and we could afford it. And they're a big part of the reason we could afford it too, and we appreciate them. When are you planning on dropping my course? Okay, so I literally was like out working till like 10:30 last night while having a beer on like the expanded outline for this course. I haven't started shooting yet. I've been dealing with a lot of shit. Mike was out of the office for a week and a half, so I was working really hard on that. I've been in and out of vet appointments with my dog. He might have to cut his leg off, dude, because we can't get rid of this tumor. So we'll figure that out. I have not had a lot of time on my hands lately, so working on this course has not been on the back burner, but it's been something I do like when I could squeeze an extra couple minutes out of my day, and that's rare lately. How much capital did we start with? So this is kind of funny. With our first deal, so we started this business with 50,000 each, and we really only brought 35 each to like the business bank account. We didn't use it on this business. We used it to actually buy a property that was going to be a BRRRR deal. And then we started spending money on marketing, like $400 or $500 a month for like 6 or 7 months. And that was between two of us, Mike and I. And within like 6 or 7 months, we'd quit our jobs. So it didn't cost us much, like less than $5,000 to really start this business. And over a short period of time, it worked out well. So how do you reconcile the steady decline in population in Gary with strong rent growth? Well, I mean, population growth statistics are very, very hard to track from a methodology standpoint, right? Like, is it census people knocking on doors? Is that what's happening over there? And also, does population decline matter if rents are growing? That's my question for you. And rental demand is consistent? Is it about vacancies and uninhabitable houses? Is it residential housing being torn down because it's not up to code, because it's uninhabitable and too cheap? What's really going on? What's causing population to decline, right? Because I don't understand why population decline would matter or how it could be fundamentally true if rents have grown at a faster rate than the broader market significantly and consistently over several years in time. And the quality of housing has improved too, right? And it's a different type of tenant seeking a different type of product in that market now. And that by itself may be enough to justify investing there without worrying about population, because there are multiple types of housing product available in the market. If there's a particular type within the greater market that's outperforming, then it might be hidden beneath or kind of like ambiguated by a very general statistic like population growth, but is truly an outperforming asset. That might be it. Hate to get to like data science on you guys, but like I spent a lot of time in like high throughput production R&D in biotech. And basically what that means is tons of data points being spit out by machines, all being interpreted by a bunch of scientists, right? And the story behind the data changed completely, or the results sheet changed completely depending on how the scientist chose to interpret what was really happening on those raw numbers. And what you learn is most of them get it wrong, right? Or most of the methodology is weak, has holes in it. Sometimes you have to look at the tangibles and what's really happening today at like the qualitative level, and that's enough, to be quite frank with you. I use Salesforce, and I have 4 employees plus 2 of us, Mike and I, right, on Salesforce. It's expensive-ish. I mean, it's $75 a month per person paid annually, so it's $900 a year. We pay, what is that, $5,400 a year or something like that. Yeah, it gets the job done. You don't need it if you're like just getting started. And I'm a process and organization junkie, and I like the modularity of Salesforce. It's excessively complicated sometimes, but it's worthwhile. You can have obviously thousands of employees using a Salesforce org on the cloud. What underwriting software do we use? We don't use the software to underwrite. We have a financial analysis tool that I've created, a rental property calculator, and we chase after consumer product that's like 20 units or less most of the time. So it really gets it done. And then obviously we look at like tenants and condition, and we gather that information and we put it in Salesforce too, and just translate it over to a report for our investors. What's capacity for holding property lists? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Would you invest in the hood if returns were high enough? I don't really look at like stuff like crime rate or like median income as much as I look at cap rate, rent growth, and then observationally, do they pay, do they stay, do they move in quickly? And by stay, I mean stay for more than a year at a time. Those details are kind of enough for me in most markets, and I try to do it in secondary markets, not major cities. For some reason, I see management companies more willing to take on difficult neighborhoods in secondary markets rather than major cities. Any suggestions on how to increase capital to get started in real estate? You got to decide how you're going to make your money, right? Or get your money from somebody else. You could gather investor funds, but you have to have some value to bring to them, whether it's your skill, your operational ability, your ability to find really good deals. That's going to be required for you to be able to get investors onto your platform, right? To give you their money. Otherwise, start a business, right? Get a high-paying career going or develop within your high-paying career. You just got to make more cash. Everyone that I know that's like invests in real estate really successfully is they all have a story on how they made their money. They all have a story, whether it was within real estate or outside of it. But it wasn't just this like, I just kept buying more deals gradually and value adding. They all did something to scale rapidly. Do I always enter or inspect a property before purchase? Almost always. Almost every single time. There's no reason not to. Like, someone should be able to let you into a property, right? Now, I don't get into a property ever before making an offer. The offers go out before we enter the properties. However, we do inspect them all during escrow, preferably with a third-party inspection company. If it's one we know we're going to keep and it's a deal that we just want like a scope of work on, we'll send our property managers in for a walkthrough, and that's enough. But we don't enter the property before the offer, and we won't close without entering. What's the most amount of money I lost ever? About $5,000 on a deal like 4.5 years ago. Never lost money again after that. Not once. Made mistakes, never lost money. Never lost money on a deal ever again after that. You don't have to lose money. Hedge against risk, right? Create a business model that like inherently just limits your risk, and just have conservative criteria. Don't be too gung-ho about the wrong kind of deal. I think a lot of us that get emotionally attached to, we have to do the next deal. People buy bad deals because of that. Don't lose money. That's all I got to tell you. That's my advice for you. What else do we have? Do I Section 8? Our property managers sometimes don't like dealing with Section 8 administration, but we accept Section 8 tenants. We buy properties that have Section 8 tenants too in the markets that we operate in, but that's because we like markets with strong rental demand within these affordable regions, right? And that have landlord favoring laws, so we're not concerned with operating in these kind of areas. What platform do we gather data from for the deal calculator? I made a whole live on this last week. You get current rents from the seller, you have them prove it with documentation. You get market rents from a combination of rentometer, current listings, property management recommendations, and then of course your previous experience with the market as to what kind of rents you can get. Austin, Texas, it's hot, man. It's really hot. Like, there's no doubt there's growth going on there, but is it worth what it's being priced at in today's current market? Is it really worth that just because it's growing? I wouldn't buy there right now. I don't know. You tell me. Most common hedges I utilize. Contingencies in a contract. That's the biggest one. I just won't buy a property that's going to be difficult without a discount from market value either. And like, the more difficult, the more substantial the discount. So if I've got a property that like is complete shit and it could go completely wrong on me and I just might want to get out of it, I'll buy it at a price that's less than I know I can sell it for, worst case scenario. So I'm still making money. I just say no to deals. That's the biggest thing. Favorite exit strategy, whole tail, not wholesale, not flip, whole tail. Buying properties that are in good condition, sell them at what they're worth with a lot of good due diligence attached to them on the same day, so my inventory is not tied up. I don't have to deal with contractors, neither do my investors. Everyone's happy. Love the wholesale model. Make as much money as a flipper on these deals too. I'm not making 5 pops on these deals, I'll tell you that. If you were a 16-year-old, how would you go about starting your real estate career? Depends on what you know so far. Some 16-year-olds are so savvy, they already know the game. Dive in and learn. And at that age, I would say, build up your business acumen. because it will, one, you have a lot of time ahead of you and energy ahead of you and not a lot of like risk, right? Or sorry, you don't have a lot of consequence, so your risk tolerance is high, is how I should say it. You might as well build a business out of it. You don't have much to lose. Find something that doesn't take a lot of resources put in to develop. Learn about real estate. Find a way to make a lot of money. That's my advice to you. Find a way to make a high income and develop that. And it's okay if it doesn't happen today. You're 16. What a lot of people have a hard time doing when they're younger is they don't have like the, I guess, I don't know, like the attachment to their vision or the obsession with a vision to say, I'm just going to do this thing that's not going to get me a result for 5 years, but I'm still going to do it with faith. If you can find like the belief to be able to focus on something and continuously put a high level of effort into it for years and years and years to come, without expecting a result for some period of time, I think you're gonna be really successful by the time you're 21, 22 years old. So it's the same advice for a 25-year-old too. It's the same advice for a 25-year-old. I mean, obviously, like, you can take action now. You can do a lot professionally as a 25-year-old. Make more money. Make more money. When I was 25, I remember riding in the car with a girl I was dating at the time, and I was saying, I just gotten this job with this pay raise to $25 an hour. And I was pretty excited about it at the time. It was 7 years ago, right? I'm 32. I told her, I said, by the time I'm 30, I want to make $100K a year. I really did. Little did I know that if I tried, I could make $1 million a year by the time I was 30. And I did. But I didn't know it at the time. So I would say focus on doing whatever it is that you can do to make a lot more money sooner, and don't let other people's standards and what's normal around you dictate that. I thought, someone called me an old fart. I thought they said, did you fart? I'm like, you're not in the room. How did you know? Don't like look around and say, man, I'm 25. My manager who's been doing this for 10 years makes 90K. I want to make 90K like them. Fuck that. Like, you don't want to wait 10 years either. Do that shit right now. Make a lot of money right now. Figure out a way. Leave everyone in the dust. People should call you crazy. My mom, my roommates, my employers, my coworkers all thought I was really crazy and said a variety of different things to me about it. When I decided I was going to go into investing in real estate, and I wanted to quickly quit my job to be able to do so. They told me all kinds of shit. Even my dad, who was like, never work for fucking anyone in your life. He would say, or when I quit my software sales gig and I was making like 110 or something like that, he was like, that was a good job, son. I don't know why you did that. You could have held on a little bit longer. I immediately was making more money the day I quit, right? You know who didn't call me crazy? Didn't call me crazy? The owner of the software company I was working for. It was a 150 employee company. I walked into his office. I said, yo, DJ, I gotta go, bro. And he's like, yeah? I'm like, yeah. I thought he was gonna say, don't do it. You know what he told me? He said, if I were you, I would have quit this shit 6 months ago. Because he was an entrepreneur, right? But the scientists I worked for at Bayer when I was working there before, I remember one of them, who was a real nice lady, asked me, she said, hey, now that your contract's ending and you're leaving, what are your plans? I said, I want to be a real estate investor. And she's like, takes a lot of luck. And it didn't. It didn't take a lot of luck. I mean, there were like lucky instances along the way, but it didn't take a lot of luck. It just took fucking doing it and building it right. And by the way, like, pretty smart lady, right? But just trained to believe a certain way, or to think a certain way and believe certain things. I think if you don't allow yourself to use people who are trained to believe these things as a model, then you could become whatever version of yourself that you want to be. How do you always find great deals? Lots and lots and lots of advertising dollars, and consistently. I mean, I've shown you guys like the Salesforce records. There's a seller that Shayna called, I think 90 times over the course of like 2 years to get a deal. 90 times over 2 years. And like, they were interested the first time. And it took 90 more calls to seal the deal and close it up. And then we mailed them for like 2 years before that. Imagine that level of consistency across thousands and thousands of people, what it could do for you. So that level of consistency gets us great deals on a monthly basis, every fucking day. We just bought 3 houses today for 30 grand each. I could show you the 3D walkthroughs. They're very clean inside. and occupied and newer mechanicals. They're worth, in their current condition, 70, 75, and 85. As they stand, I could turn them for that dollar amount today. So they happen all the time. They didn't always happen all the time, but they do now. And fortunately, the amount of time it took for them to start coming in so frequently was just enough time for us to get our money so we could afford to buy them now when they come along every single time. Do I think bird dogging is profitable for a 16-year-old? It's a good way to learn, and you could make some money. Learn, make some money, move along if you think you could do it yourself after and make some more money. How do I identify which markets to invest in? I got a whole live on this. I want rent growth. I want a higher cap rate than nearby comparable markets. I want a minimum 7 cap. I want landlord-friendly laws, and I want an abundance of the right kind of product, the product that meets my criteria. Because if you've only got 10 of the property you like in a particular market, then good luck getting those guys to sell to you at a good price. But if you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, then you have a higher chance of actually snagging deals that meet your criteria too, right? Why do sellers sell for 30K if they know they can get 70, 75K? They don't know that, number one. They think they can get maybe 55 or 60 or something like that, right? Number two, this seller has owned his property for 25 years. He's a mid-level business executive out of Chicago. He wants a reliable buyer he can work with that's not going to displace his tenants, and they can buy them all cash, all at once, that's trustworthy, not going to make him work for it, not going to nitpick the inspection. And that's what we offer. Right? So there's a combination, it's a game of like inches from a bunch of different directions. Lack of perceived value or a misperception of value or mispricing of the property, and then our process, our credibility, and then just changes in the market, convenience, all those things create a little bit of victory for us, and they stack up, and sometimes you get luckier than other times, guys. So yeah, we just bought the property for less than what it's worth, and the guy just sold it to us for a discount to some extent, right? Because I would have bought them for 40, to be honest with you, but I'm not going to tell them no for 30 each. What the fuck you want me to say? I mean, like I understand, like there's a concept of ethics attached to it, right? But would you tell him no if he said, buy this from me for 30? I don't know. Maybe you guys are better people than me. How do I start? Cold calling and mailers? Just mailers. Just mailers. We don't fuck with cold calling, text, ringless voicemail, any of that stuff, because we make way too much money to get a TCPA class action lawsuit against us. So we just don't do it. We just have people send us deals that do it. Who can't monetize them as well sometimes. But yeah, we don't do that stuff. We just mail. I'll answer one more good question. Anybody? Yeah, you'd be like 25K just checking. Yeah, we did that too. We had to put a new roof on one of the properties for us actually before closing, or maybe 2 of them, so that was good. What would I do if a recession happened? This is what I do in my pockets. Can you guys see my pockets? I would literally turn them inside out like this, and then I just fucking take my wallet and I just dump it upside down. If there was a recession, I would probably 10x my net worth within like 2 years. We've been holding on to reserves and deep equity positions in properties, and a very big list of investors in preparation of an influx of inventory, maybe at discounted prices if it ever happens. If it does happen, we're cleaning up shop because we're ready and well qualified and prepared to execute, and equipped with not just the financial resources but the operational resources that we need to be able to make it happen. If someone came to us with 100 properties and said, buy these all at once at a deep discount from market value, we'd be able to pull it off. 500 properties a year, bring it on. Bring it on. Let's go. I would love to see a loosening of inventory. I don't want to say recession because I don't like to see people lose their ass. We're winning when the market's hot right now, so I don't need to see someone else lose money, lose wealth, put themselves in economic distress for my gain. I would do fine if the market stayed like this. I'd make a lot of money too, right? But if the market changed and really without even price, I don't even need the prices to shift significantly. I just need inventory to open up. That would create a lot of opportunity. That's all. I'm going to take off, guys. Finish this a little bit. Whoa, Sean, just wait until the end of the live and just dropping the email in. Email Sean if you have off-market deals, I guess. All right, guys, have a great weekend. This is going to go on Instagram TV, and it's going to go on YouTube as well. So, hey, you know what? If you're here and you're watching this to the end, go subscribe to my YouTube. Show me some love. I'd really appreciate it. I'm just trying to create, content on a platform where you guys can more easily watch, cast it to your TV, fast forward, listen in 2x or whatever it is. And 2, just diversify the brand a little bit across a couple different content platforms. So join me everywhere else you got me, if you don't mind. The content's going up on all of it. If you like LinkedIn, do LinkedIn. If you like TikTok, do TikTok. And if you like YouTube, yeah, please hop on YouTube. See you guys later. I'm gonna finish this whiskey up, go home and take a nap.